bit more to monetize its user base. It's had an interesting kind of run as a stock in its time of being a publicly traded company. Facebook had a rocky, initial public offering in terms of the initial reception. And really since then, it's been almost the exact opposite story. As I look at a chart of the 10-year performance of Facebook, I see up and to the right largely, of course, some periods of volatility around regulation concerns and privacy concerns, and of course, throughout this move. But it's been absolutely incredibly strong in terms of its stock price performance, Andy. And there's a lot of reasons why, and one of them is its ability to monetize its user base.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think Facebook really understands pretty much each and every one of its users because of the way people connect with each other, confirm friendships. I think of Twitter as really a publisher type of model, whereas Facebook is a true social network and probably one of the most powerful advertising platforms ever created. And it's showing right now when LikeFolio looked at data around people talking about actually completing purchases on Instagram and on Facebook. You can see the impact that this lockdown or shutdown period has had on that business line. And so, you'll see almost immediately a 50% spike in the number of people that are indicating that they're actually completing the purchase, not just clicking on an ad, but actually completing the purchase via the Instagram or Facebook platform. And, we think of this just like almost everything else that's going on with this shutdown. It's an accelerator. It's accelerating trends that were already in place. And so, I know that we've talked about in the past, we've hit on some of the discrepancy between, streaming advertiser dollars and, and streaming viewership. Well, now we're starting to see that this digital wave is not only building, but it is actually taking hold in a very important way. And it's changing the way that consumers behave. They're no longer watching ads on TV. In fact, Chipotle came out and said that they're pulling back. I think General Motors as well is pulling back their television advertising and dumping more into Facebook and Instagram because that's where they've seen things be effective. So it's not just that people are shopping online and doing more of that. They're actually buying through the platform, and that's giving advertisers confidence to put money into that platform at rates that they hadn't before. And so there's a massive shift going on. The shutdowns have accelerated and possibly turned those behaviors into permanent changes from the consumer's perspective.
Andy, when I look at your chart with the spike in user and purchases on Instagram and Facebook, and I look at those green bars, you know who's in those green bars? I am. I'm one of them.
Yeah.
Because their ability to target you in the things that you have interest in based on your searches on social media like that, it is amazing in terms of what you start to think about you need, and then you get inundated with advertisers for that. I mean, and I see it. But here's the question that I have for you. Is any of your data from Facebook showing that these increases that have come through the pandemic crisis will hold over time? Because in my opinion, advertisers that go to Facebook will never go back to regular advertising as they knew it before.
Oh, I think that they have to hold. You just have to do the math to look at that. I think we've talked about it several times on this program where this big discrepancy between ad dollars spent at 3 or 4% of ad dollars going to streaming versus where viewers are, which is 30% on streaming. So once the ad dollars start flowing there, it's almost like, advertisers and marketers are humans too. They have habits, they have platforms that they're used to using. And now you break through and you start to capture those dollars, but more importantly, those habits of advertising and marketing on these platforms. And I think that it is a permanent behavior change, both at the consumer level and at the marketer or advertising level. I think that it has to hold simply because the math is there. That's where the eyeballs are. Yeah, there's more eyeballs during, a shutdown, But the fact is there were always a lot more eyeballs. And now Facebook, Instagram, they're proving that they can monetize those users by getting shoppers to complete the purchase right there in the platform, which is very powerful.
And so, Andy, what I'm hearing is, overall marketing revenues, ad revenues might be down. And we saw that from Alphabet's report that quarter over quarter they saw a decline even in YouTube. But year over year, it was still extraordinary in terms of the growth. And, maybe what I'm hearing here is that Facebook, although the overall pie might be shrinking, their portion might be shrinking at a far less, rate, and it actually could be growing. But I want to focus on Instagram because it's been a long, slow, methodical process. It has appeared from a user of Instagram, but as a market participant and someone who watches kind of how these companies operate, to go from it being kind of this true social media that's it platform to this integrated kind of shopping and ad revenue network as well. And I think, Andy, I have a hunch about this, and I want to get your guys' take, of course, since you're monitoring this. Has that slow, methodical plan allowed Facebook to integrate this software and this, embedded ad and shopping network without the expense of its user experience and sentiment loss because it's been so slow and almost like it's been inched in there that you didn't even notice it happened?
Yeah, I think so. I think Facebook was very deliberate about the way that they did this. The fact that on Instagram, the posts are not chronological. They are, they are put together for you by Instagram in terms of what they think you'll be interested in. That gives them a huge advantage when they go to show an advertisement or, a buy now page of a product that they think you might be interested in. And I think that what that does is it actually increases the value of the user experience, where ads are not seen nearly as intrusive on Instagram as they are on other platforms. And it's because they've done such a good job of understanding what people like, what they want to see, and what they'll tolerate in their feed and what they interact with. So I think that you're absolutely right. They were methodical about this, and it's starting to really pay off. And this shutdown has been just an accelerant poured onto an already underway trend.
And so I know oftentimes, Andy, that Instagram is kind of compared with Snapchat a lot. And, I think you could push back on Snapchat and Instagram's comparison because Instagram seems to be a little bit more open, Snapchat a little bit more closed off to a private network of friends and family. And I actually think that Instagram probably, and this is just my kind of speculation, is probably closer, in terms of monetization tied to something like a Pinterest. But where interest differs from a Pinterest is, one, if you're logging on Pinterest, you're going on there for a reason. You're looking for ideas. It's a natural, click here to buy this. It isn't hard for the user to see why there's an advertisement there. It's a little bit, closed off in terms of the amount of demographic and the type of demographic that goes there. They don't have as wide of a net that they've casted over the population. Instagram's got a wide net, and they've seemed to be able to integrate this from our conversation in a way that doesn't feel intrusive, almost makes sense, and is almost welcomed based off your data showing how much it's growing, that people are actually using this experience. And companies are showing that as well, talking about moving ad dollars to these companies. So am I wrong in that thinking? And is this a trend, to Kevin's point as well, that is not only here to stay, but might have just changed everything forever?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously too early to say. If I had to bet, I would say that at least a big portion of this shift is here to stay forever because it just makes sense. And the other thing I would throw in there, LikeFolio data supporting what you're talking about, is that during this massive surge in people doing shopping on Facebook and Instagram, we've actually seen an uptick in consumer happiness of 2%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. Anytime you see greater and greater numbers of people doing their shopping or performing the action that the company wants them to do, and happiness or sentiment increases, that is a very good sign that the behavior is there to stay and not just a one-off. They're going to return to that behavior, and they don't see it as a degradation of the product that they're using.
And so, Andy, last 30 seconds here, real quick. The data seems to be positive. The happiness upticking. These numbers of people talking about using these services upticking. Is the stock outrun this though? Is it too far, too fast? As we're getting close to those all-time highs again, or do you guys like Facebook in the near term and in the long term?
I like it in the near term, like it in the long term. I think that there's a lot of unknowns. They will rise and fall with the overall economy and advertising industry. So there's significant risks to all of these companies going forward. But when I think of it compared to its peers, that's where it really jumps off of the page. And so I encourage investors to think about strategies that may take advantage of one company being stronger than another and mitigating that overall market or sector risk. And so that's the way I would think about it. And clearly, through this shutdown period, it looks to us like Facebook is the one getting the most traction with both the consumer and advertiser side of the coin.